Hi, and welcome back to this new episode of the Muphotography video blog. We're going to do a new post-processing effect today, and it's going to look something like this. So it's a little bit green, it's a bit more dramatic, and I think it's quite a nice look, as a little bit of a cinematic touch that I also had in the last post-processing effect that I've done. I just like this a lot. I'm a big fan of cinema, and I think this really looks cool, the overall effect. So how do we get started? I'm just going to delete this group, and we're going to start fresh. So this is the image that we start with, and the first thing we do is, in order to tweak the colors, we use a selective color adjustment layer. So you click on the adjustment layers, and then click on, where is it here? Selective color. Selective color gives you a lot of options how to change the different colors, and you change them by changing sliders for cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. And in order to understand what's happening, it's very useful to look at this info palette here. So if you have the info palette open, you should see this. If not, you can go to Window and Info, or press F8. You get to the same window. So if you change cyan in one direction, in the positive direction, with these sliders, you get more cyan. If you change it to the negative direction, you get more red, because that is opposed on the other side. If you change magenta up, you get more magenta. If you change it down, you get more green. If you increase yellow, you guessed it, you get more yellow, and if you reduce it, you get blue. So this helps you to better understand what's happening when you change these sliders. So we go back here, and our look starts with changing the red channel. So what I want to do is pump up the cyans a bit on the red channel, like this. Now let's have a look at the magentas. I think we could use a little bit more magenta as well. A little bit more yellow too. So basically I want to tweak these reds a lot. I want to make them pop a bit more. And so you can see that this makes them darker, this will make them brighter. I want to make them a bit darker. Plus 14 is about right. Okay, so since the hair color is also affected by yellow, I will also go into the yellow channel and pump up the cyan a bit. If I pump it more, you'll see it get very green. If I pump it down, it gets a bit it gets a bit crazy. So we'll just go there. The magenta, I'll move up again a bit. So say 16. I take out a little bit of yellow. I don't want it to be too strong. I want it to fit in with the rest of the image a bit better. And I make it a bit darker as well. Okay. And now finally the whites. So you can see there are the color options until you get to magenta, and then you have whites, neutrals, and blacks. This basically splits the image up into the very bright colors, the kind of middle ground, and the very dark colors. So I want to change the whites and make the whites a bit more greenish, and that means I need to reduce magenta. Remember this info panel? I'll just show you again. Magenta, green, right? So if I take down magenta, I get green. Okay, so that's the first part. And now the reds here, they are a bit too saturated for my taste. I want to take them down a notch. And in order to do that, I'll go to the adjustments, hue saturation, and with the master you can change everything. But right now we don't want that. We want to change only the reds, and we want to move it down a little bit. So that's too much, but let's say about 20 or so. And the greens we also want to desaturate a bit, so this would be extreme. This is just for the highlights. I want the highlights to be barely visible, with a barely visible greenish touch. Not much, very little. So let's say about here. Okay, I want a green cast over the whole image. So what I'm going to do now is I use a photo filter. This is also part of the adjustment layers, as you can see here. And then you have several options. So right now, as you can see, a warming filter has been applied that warms up all the colors. And in this case, I want the colors to be a bit greenish, because that's usually the look that you have on these in these movies, is that you have a very green color cast. So I pump this up to about 35. That looks good. And as you see, that this is very strong, and I only want it to be present in some parts of the image, but not in everything. So I changed the blending mode, and this allows you to determine where the effect is seen. So I can kind of remove it and have it only in the highlights, or I can have it only in the shadows. And in this case, I wanted the green to be visible mostly in the shadows, but not so much in the highlights. So I split the slider up, so this makes it blend. And then slide this down a bit to remove it from the highlights bit. So this is before and this is after. And now the image overall is a bit too bright, so it needs a little bit of contrast. So we use curves to do that. We fixed this point, we don't want that to move, because if I move this, you can see that the highs are moving around. This actually doesn't look too bad, but right now I don't want this. And I want to move this down a bit here. Just a little bit to the right. So if I move this more to the right, you can see that things get very black. I don't want to leave it totally to the left, because I like in the lower left corner here it's a bit too open, so I want to close the image a bit by having the corners a bit darker, like this. Alright, and now the last thing that we need to make this image a bit stronger is a vignette around it, and this is done in the same way. So you create a curves layer, and in this case we will need the layer mask. So we drag down the curves. Now everything gets a lot darker, but we're going to make the face brighter again. So you make sure that you have the black color selected here, click the paintbrush, choose a brush that is very soft, rather big. I like round brushes for this. Okay. And then what I do is just paint it here around and leave the corners out. The corners get burned in. And now I can change the opacity of this layer a bit to make it less strong. I could also change the curves here, it has the same effect. Alright, and with this we are finished. I will just make a group by selecting all of the layers and pressing Command or Control G. And you can see the after, and this is our before. I hope you enjoyed this little tutorial, and tune in next week again when there will be another look for you to try out. Have a nice day. Bye bye. See you.